Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me today as I talk about how we can support neurodivergent children through play. Play is so unique to all of us, but the aims of today are hopefully that you get a greater insight into how children with neurodiversities play and why and how this may look different, and hopefully give you a bit more knowledge on how play can be such a useful tool for connecting with your child. Okay, so before we get into it, just a little bit about where I come from. So I work for a company called PlayBoard, and we are based in Belfast here in Northern Ireland, but we are the lead organisation for children's play in Northern Ireland. We've just celebrated our 40th year anniversary. We were established in 1985, and we deliver play programmes in a range of settings, including schools, communities, and for councils. We believe that play is the best way for children to develop their physical, mental, and emotional health, and we were actually the winner of the Playworks Sector Award in 2025. In addition to working with schools and communities and councils, we also provide expertise to local and regional governments at a national level and across the UK as well. So, a quick introduction to our team within Playboard. We are the Inclusive Play team and we are funded by the Department of Education here in Northern Ireland. Our role includes delivering an inclusive play programme to schools to ensure play is accessible to all, and how offering that expertise and why and how it may need to be different for our children who are atypical. I come from a SEN teaching background and I have worked with children with complex needs and social communication difficulties for the past 7 years. Susan, who you can see, also comes from a teaching background and taught in a number of schools for the past 20 years, including working as a Senko in her previous post. And last but not least, Becca is our Playboard expert who has worked for the company for 7 years, and she is also the parent of twins with ASD and global developmental delay, so she has that lived experience. Okay, so what will I be covering today? Firstly, schematic play, then a quick look at why children within your university may have fleeting attention and less focus during play. Strong play routines, the how rigid a child can be and how they play and what they play with. Some tips on how to build connections through play, especially if your child does prefer to play on their own. Sensory seeking play, why it is a need for some children and how you can safely support this at home. And finally, support and sensory integration, which is everything to do with sensory processing and sensory differences. So what is this thing called play? The definition that we use at Playboard is that play is freely chosen, intrinsically motivating, and personally directed. In short, this means that children choose exactly how they want to play and should be free to do whatever they want to do. More often than not, this play is serving a purpose and meeting a need. As adults, we might not see or understand what this purpose is, but we need to remember that it is there, especially for our children who do have a neurodivergent, and this play may be very non-traditional and it may not be what we think play is, but we need to remember to keep coming back to this definition that it is chosen by them, for them, and personally directed by them. Play is not simply something that children enjoy, it is a right. The United Nations Convention of the Rights of the Child, also known as the UNCRC, recognises every child's right to play, placing it as important as other rights such as the right to education, protection and healthcare. This highlights that play is not an optional extra or reward for learning, but an essential part of childhood. Through play, children develop communication, creativity, problem solving, physical skills, emotional well-being and relationships while making sense of the world around them. And play is for all children. Play for children with a neurodiversity might just look a little different to non-traditional play, as I already mentioned. But this doesn't mean it isn't valid play. It is still serving a developmental need and purpose for that child. So the whole point of this webinar today is to understand how this may look, why it may look this way, and what you can do as a parent or caregiver to fully support that play. So schematic play, and this is a play type that is very common for our children in neurodivergence. And it's not something that we need to provide for them as parents, it's something that they will do naturally and intrinsically. So we need to understand how we can support and develop this schematic play. Schematic play is a series of repeated actions to find out how things work. Schematic play can vary from child to child, and some children will never display schematic behaviours. The purpose of schematic play is to support brain development and help them understand repeated actions such as up and down, side to side, and spinning, which will then help them to get ready for skills later in life such as walking, climbing, and writing. Schemas are a set of instructions that even as adults we use all the time, such as getting dressed or driving a car, almost similar to an algorithm that is learned by a computer. A schema is a mental model that has been created through trial and error to find the best and most efficient way of doing something. Our schemas need to be constantly updated because they're only based on our own current knowledge. So when we obtain more knowledge, we can update our schema. Children who are neurodivergent will explore their schemas for a longer time than that of a neurotypical child, and that is because it is helping them make sense of the world, develop their cognitive abilities, improves their motor skills, increases attention span, helps them to problem solve and cope with change and challenge, allows them to test a range of ideas, and can build their independence and create a safe space for themselves. In theory, the number of schemas are limitless, as all they are is a repeated set of instructions to figure out the best way to complete an action. But the 10 that we are going to discuss today are some of the most common that are seen in children with a neurodivergence, and these are known as action schemas. They help us make a mental models of movements and help us represent actions in our minds. I won't list and read them all off here, but if you want to have a quick pause to read which each of these schemas are named and what actions you might see a children repeating if they're exploring this schema. Just a quick note before we move on that connecting also includes disconnecting, and then the enveloping and the enclosing schema, although they may sound the same, they differ, as enveloping the object will disappear, but enclosing you still see an object, so it's kind of creating a barrier around something. So I'll let you have a quick pause and then read through. If you see any of these behaviours in your child, they may be stuck in a certain play schema. So why is it so important for children to have the opportunities to explore these schemas? First, it's an inherent need, so they're going to need to explore it because they need to figure something out. So no matter how much we try to stop a schema, it's going to come out anyway. But also they turn into so much more. For example, enclosing, which starts as building boundaries, will eventually turn into letter formation, mark making, and holding mark making tools in a fist grip. Again, I won't read every single schema out, but have a look at which ones might be applicable to your child and then see what skills that schema is supporting. During schematic play, children aren't trying to make a mess, get attention, or be difficult. They're testing theories, and they do it again and again until their brain says, "Yes, I get this now." Schemas are especially important for children with autism, learners with developmental delays, non-speaking or sensory-seeking individuals. These learners may engage in schematic play for longer and in more intense and creative ways. When misunderstood, it can be labeled as disruptive or obsessive. But when understood, you realise this is how they learn best, and by offering safe, sensory-rich alternatives, we may help them regulate and engage more meaningful. So, what can we do? We can observe first what schemas can you see and what could they be getting from engaging in the schema. Risk assess. Is it unsafe or is it just messy? It may be hard whenever a child is exploring their schema and they're making an absolute mess, and that might be really frustrating as a parent or a caregiver. But have a quick look and take a step back as yourself, or are they unsafe? Am I unsafe? Or are they just making a mess? And 9 times out of 10 it will be they're just making a mess. So what else can we do? We can offer a yes space. We can offer safe ways to repeat the pattern through play. And we can extend the schema to match their learning. And we see the little question at the bottom that we always need to ask ourselves when we're using play as an observation tool. What are they trying to understand? And what is this teaching me about how they learn? If you refer to our Padlet that I'm going to give you a code for at the very end, there is lots and lots of ideas on how you can incorporate play to match to your child's schema, and how you can introduce more play that will support their schema and extend their schema. Moving on, so they won't play with anything. This is a quote I've heard from parents again and again when their child has a fleeting tension, focus, and engagement on activity, so only doing something for a couple of seconds. This fleeting attention can make it extremely difficult when trying to entertain your child around our extremely busy lives. So how can we try and make this better? Firstly, what does this fleeting attention look like? And if this is something your child does, then I don't need to tell you. You already know. So it may be immediately dropping objects as soon as they pick them up, running back and forth between activities, and this could be, between one and then another one and then back and forth, or it could be around all the activities in the room. They may like to watch rather than participate. They're going back and forth between play. They may need to have movement breaks during play, and they may explore only for seconds and then move on. So that really, really, real fleeting attention. So why does this happen? Why is this happening for our children? This is because there's differences in how attention is regulated. Conditions such as ADHD, autism, and other neurodivergent profiles affect the brain's dopamine and neurotransmitter systems, which influence their motivation and focus. In ADHD, attention can shift quickly between tasks that are interesting and those that are not, leading to frequent changes in play focus. In autism, attention may be intense for a specific interest, but hard to disengage from, or conversely, easily distracted by sensory input. So, moving on to sensory integration, and this is something that we do touch on later on in this webinar as well. So, neurodivergent children may be hypersensitive or hyposensitive to sensory input. Bright lights, background noise, or tactile sensations can pull attentions away from a play activity, making them hyper-absorbed in a single stimulus until it changes. This can cause rapid shifts in what they attend to during play. Thinking of a child's executive functioning. Executive function challenges, which are very common in ADHD, autism, and dyslexia, can make it harder to sustain a single focus or to initiate play or to switch between activities smoothly. This can appear as a fleeting attention, but it may also reflect a need to explore multiple ideas or objects in sequence. And then it also may be due to their play style and their motivation. So neurodivergent children often play in ways that match their interests and their sensory needs. If a toy or activity no longer provides the same level of stimulation, they may move on quickly, but not because they are disengaged, but their brain is seeking a new and more engaging input. So, they've gone to a toy, they've got the sensory, they've seeked sensory input, they've got that from that toy, but now they need more. Okay, so it's like their levels get heightened and their levels get more. They need more input now, so they're going to find a toy that can provide that to the next level than what they already have. So what can we do for a fleeting attention during play? So first of all, start with their interests. This is something you already know and you already do. So use what already captures their attention as the starting point. If they love wheels, use cars. If they love filling and emptying, then play or build your play around containers. Keep it simple. I think a lot of parents, especially in today when we're comparing our whole lives on social media and you're seeing what everyone else is doing, the most effective way for children with neurodivergence is to keep it simple. Too many toys, choices, and instructions become overwhelming. Try putting out fewer resources and adding more as needed, but simple is best. Make the environment work for them. Think about the noise, the light, and the clutter, and other children in movement. Sometimes changing the environment can make a bigger difference than changing anything else about the play. Do you know their sensory profile? And again, this is something that we will touch on later in the webinar. Do you know their sensory profile and what sensory environment works and doesn't work for them? Another thing that we can do is add movement. Some children find it easier to tend when their bodies are moving. Try bouncing, climbing, pushing, pulling, carrying, or jumping alongside play. And it's okay to have those movement breaks during play. Again, just because that doesn't look traditional or typical to you, doesn't mean that it's typical or traditional to them. Use repetition. Repetition is not wasted play. Doing the same thing again and again can help children process, predict, and develop mastery, kind of linking back to that schematic play that we just talked about. Keep your input small. Your input as an adult is going to have a huge impact on the play environment and the play space. So try as much as possible to keep your input small. You don't need to constantly talk, ask questions, or demonstrate, and too much child input can actually interrupt a child's concentration. But follow their natural rhythm. Some children may play for 30 seconds, move away, and return later. That does not mean that the play was not meaningful. And build on small moments, so celebrate all of their wins. If they engage for 10 seconds, that's your starting point. Gradually build these opportunity around what already works rather than expecting sustained attention immediately. Some of these things, they're great ideas and they're great strategies, but they are also need to be consistent ideas and consistent strategies. That's what's going to work for our young children and young people whenever we are consistent. And this consistent might have to be over 3 months, 6 months, a year, but as long as it's consistent, so long as it's there, you will gradually build upon these small moments until they become really big moments. All right, next we're going to talk about strong play routines. And strong play routines can happen for a multitude of reasons, and these differ from child to child. In many kinds of neurodivergent, predictability and structure are key to their sense of safety, control, and emotional regulation, which is why sometimes we will see these strong play routines and refusal to change what and how they do things. There can also be some underlying reason in a strong play routine that a child cannot communicate. So, for example, I always use this example when I was teaching. I told a little boy who was experiencing a number of adverse child experiences at home that we didn't know about originally. He was obsessed with the same play routines and would do the same things over and over again. We then realised that play was the only thing that he had total control of in his whole life, and that he was falling into this strong play routine because it was helping him to feel safe. He was creating this safe space for himself, emotionally regulating, and something that he had full control over. A number of children with neurodiversities, even if they aren't experiencing childhood diversity, play is the only thing that they have complete control of. So we need to allow it to feel predictable for them, and that's why they create these predictability in these strong play routines. So strong play routines, when play has to happen just right. So what might this strong play routine look like? So the same toy is always used first. Objects are used in a particular way. A game has to follow the same sequence, and they will repeat the same words during play. That might be as well something like echolalic, that they've heard phrases repeated and then they have to use those in their play. So an example of this, Peppa and George jump in muddy puddles, and then they're reenacting these scenes during their play, and they always say Peppa, George jump in muddy puddles. That was an example that I had a lot when I was teaching. They'll have the same patterns during play. They will find it difficult to join in anyone else's play, or they will not let you join in their play, and they don't want you to change their play. And if this does happen, if this play date does happen, they will become very distressed, or also they might want the same story, song, or show over and over again. So what can we do to support these really strong play routines that, although then I could obviously become a bit controversial here, because we're saying, let the child do what they want, but we also do not want them to get stuck in these patterns that then they're missing out on other things. So what can we do to support these play routines to help them become more flexible in their play, to allow them to access a wider variety of play to support their well-being and development? We like to think of play at PlayBoard as a buffet, and when we go to a buffet, we like to have a little bit of everything. But this is something that can be really challenging for our children. So what can we do without putting too much pressure on them or trying to control their play? So firstly, we change one tiny thing at a time. So if they always play with the same cars, don't suddenly introduce a completely different game or a completely different object. So if you always put the cars out, don't then suddenly take them away and put out the zoo animals, for example. So change one element. So if you've got all red cars, then maybe add in one blue car. If they always use the same ramp and same tracks, then maybe add a different ramp. Or if they've got always want the same color, then add one new color. So just making those tiny changes at a time to understand, okay, if you change something, it's okay, you're still going to be safe. So secondly, follow the child's sequence first. Let them complete the familiar routine before introducing something new. First their way, then we add their idea. Add rather than replace. So instead of taking away their favorite object, add something alongside it. So again, back to our car example, you always use the red car. Let's give the red car a garage, rather than saying, let's take away the car and give you something else to play with. Use predictable language when they're playing. Use the same words or phrases when you are introducing a change. So we'll say, same toys, just something extra, something new, which allows them to help make the change feel more predictable. Create a choice within the routine, so keep your overall routines the same, but offer control over one part. So do you want the blue car or the red car today? Should it go fast or slow? A really important one is to let them say no. Although we want them to have these wider life experience, and we want them to have more control, and we want them to have more varied play types in their play, a child refusing a change isn't necessarily something that we always need to overcome. So their no can give us useful information that this is something that they really need right now. It's something they feel really safe in. So we can pause, reduce the change, or try again another time. So if it's not gonna be today, again, like I said before, these things take consistency. They take time. It might not be today. It might not be next week. But it maybe be in a few weeks. And then again, along that same lines, don't change things just for the sake of changing them. Flexibility is useful, but repetitive play doesn't automatically need to become flexible play. If the routine is enjoyable, regulated, and meaningful, it's okay to let it be repetitive. I always, again, use this example. We don't often have a problem with children who love arts and crafts and want to do drawing every day, so we should be more accepting if they want to line up their animals every day. Whilst being mindful, it is up to us as parents to try and support this more flexible thinking. It is a very hard but worthwhile balance to try and achieve. Okay, so another quote that I hear over and over again: they want to play by themselves. In reality, no one wants to play by themselves all the time. Fair enough, maybe some of the time, yes, especially when social play can be overwhelming and overstimulating, but I don't know many human beings who want to be by themselves 100% of the time. And this, of course, includes our children who are neurodivergent, even more so. Solitaire play, I know, is an extremely difficult and sensitive one for children, because I know as a parent, all you want is for your child to have friends and your child to play. But what might this solitary play might look like? So it might be playing independently, it might be watching others play, it might be that parallel play that they play alongside someone else. It might be having complete control over their play, and it might be preferring to play alongside adults and being alongside adults rather than children. And this is because adults are more predictable than children. Children can be very unpredictable, and this might be very difficult for our children with neurodivergence. Okay, so what can we do to support our children who look like they would prefer to play on their own? My favourite quote is connection before correction. So what that means is we need to have this really strong connection and relationship with them before we can correct anything in their play and in their life. So it's about building that relationship and building that connection with your child, and play is a way that we can do that. So what can we do to build this connection with our child through play? So observe first, watch what they're doing, watch what they like to do, and using that play as an observation tool to try and find out what is this doing for them, what are they learning from this, what is this teaching me about my child, rather than automatically thinking they don't like to play, they don't want to play, they want to play on their own, and just leaving them to it. Next, follow their lead and copy their actions. This is a really, really, really important one. Doing what they want to do, following their lead, joining in with them. My quote at the side here links to this one. Just because it might not be fun for you doesn't mean it isn't fun from them. If you've got a child that's lining up as animals from all across the room, you doing that as well, copying them, joining in with that play, that's so validating for them. That shows my play's important, my parent thinks my play's important, my parent wants to play with me. Don't try and change the game, don't try change the child, follow their lead, copy their actions. That will be you playing with them. That's going to build your connection, and then that's going to help you correct and help allow your child then to make all these changes in their play to build all these things for them. Comment without demanding a response. As adults, we can be very quick to jump in and say, what are you doing? What are you playing with? What colour's that car? How fast is it going? What animal have you got? Always asking questions to try and build this connection. What could be better is to comment without demanding response. Again, you're validating the play, you're talking about what's happening, you're building those language skills, but you're not making play work. So, for example, oh, the tire is tall, the car is blue, the lion is running fast. Talk about what's happening, maybe reduce your language depending on the level of communication of your child, rather than questioning and demanding response, because then that's just going to create overwhelm, that's going to create overstimulation. They're not going to want you to be in their space because you're making play hard work for them, and then you're going to feel like, I tried to play with them, they didn't want to. They did want to, you were just demanding too much maybe. Using their own initiative to initiate play, playing alongside them, and letting them go at their own pace. Again, a very difficult one. Just because it might not be fun for you doesn't mean it is for them. Okay, moving on to talk about our sensory seekers during play. And these are our kids who love messy play, who love water play, who love Play-Doh, who love getting wet and dirty and mussy and putting paint all over them and getting that real sensory input from play. Sometimes it can be very messy, and then sometimes it can become unsafe if our child isn't aware of the dangers around, eating paint and eating Play-Doh and all these things, putting it in their mouth and absolutely destroying their clothes and all those types of things. So why do some children seek these sensory experiences? And we will talk about this as well a little bit more in the sensory integration part of the webinar. But why do some children seek these sensory experiences? It supports regulation, it helps manage overwhelming emotions, it allows them to experience fun and joy. They like it, they like the feeling of it. Allows them to explore their environment, gives them that movement break during play, and then they can explore it and then move on. It also supports their sensory integration needs. Okay, so what can we do during sensory play? Again, observe. Observation during play can be our biggest observation tool. Okay, so observe, what are they getting from the sensory play? What do they need from it? And what can I do to help them engage in this safely? Okay. Secondly, use what you know that they enjoy to give them the sensory input, things that are safe. Um, Keep it simple. Again, back to the start, you don't need all these amazing sensory bins and themed sensory play and all these flour, edible cereal all grounded up. Keep it simple. As long as you know what sensory input they need, just use that over and over again because that's going to give them the sensory input that they're looking for. Once then, if they've reached their sensory input and they're seeking more, that's not enough, find out what that is and use it again and again. Keep it simple. Does not have to be all glitz and glam for Instagram, as we like to say. Offer a yes space, have a boundary. Okay, I don't want them, can't wreck your whole entire kitchen and bring all the flour to the cupboards and all those sorts of thing. Set a boundary. Okay, yes, we can do sensory play here because I know you're needing that sensory input, but we cannot do it in the kitchen. Learn to be okay with the mess and offer choices. If you use our Padlet, there are so many ideas on there on safe sensory play for our sensory seekers. So have a look at the Padlet if your child is a sensory seeker during play. Sensory integration. Okay, and this is, we're almost near the end here, but sensory integration. So most of us are familiar with our five senses, which are sight, hearing, touch, taste, and smell. But there are also our three hidden senses that play a vital role in how we move, feel, and regulate ourselves. We have got the vestibular system, which is located in the inner ear, helps us to maintain our balance, coordinate movement, and understand where our body is in space through activities like swinging, spinning, jumping, and rolling. Our interoception is our awareness of what is happening inside our body, which is hunger, thirst, tiredness, temperature, emotions, and when we need to go to the toilet. And our proprioception gives us the body awareness, providing information from our muscles and joints, helping us know where our body is without looking, and sporting activities such as pushing, pulling, carrying, and climbing. So differences in any of these hidden senses can affect how children move, learn, regulate emotions, and respond to the world around them. Our brains are constantly receiving information from these sensory systems, and our neurodivergent children may be processing this information differently. So we have got our under-responsive, which is nervous systems may need more sensory input to feel organized, calm, and alert. So those are, like I said before, our sensory seekers. We may be over-responsive, so our brains may be processing ordinary sensations as overwhelming or uncomfortable. So that's our children that don't like noise, don't like bright lights, don't like too much smell, find the smells of food overwhelming, things like that. So sensory sports during play should be a tool to allow children to be themselves. What we see often in schools is that the sensory integration and sensory integration play becomes a reward when really they need it to help them feel organized and calm and alert. So we should really be using it as a tool to support them to be themselves and helping them integrate these senses and help them process this sensory information. I'm not going to go into loads of detail around sensory integration because you will know your child, but please use our Padlet, which the code is here on the screen now in the corner, to use play as sensory integration for sport. There's lots of ideas on the Padlet of heavy work activities, movement play, tactile play, oral play, auditory play. They're all on there. Whether or not your child is over responsive or under responsive, ideas on how you can help them have that kind of full cup of sensory input without it overflowing and being too much sensory input, but without it being full enough, and that they're always seeking more. Okay, so dysregulation during play, and this is a really common one with our children with neurodiversity, and this is also, I would say, probably our biggest barrier as parents, especially when we're taking them out to play, or you're taking them to soft plays, or you're taking them to birthday parties or things like that. What do we do when we have this dysregulation and we have meltdown during play? So we can reduce our language, we can reduce demands, we can stay present, try not to correct, co-regulate, offer grounding sensory support, offer choices, and try not to revisit individual moments. Again, loads more information on our Padlet about dysregulation during play, but that was just a quick kind of whistle stop tour and some ideas of how we can support our neurodivergent children through play. As I say, use our Padlet. It's on the screen again now. There's lots of information on our Padlet on how we can support our children through play, and loads of play ideas at home, and lots of play to keep our children safe. So if you would like to reach out for any more information, I've put our emails on screen now. This is myself, Becca and Susan, who are all working in this inclusive play team at PlayBoard. Please feel free to reach out to us if you had any questions about the webinar, or if there was anything that really stuck out to you that you want to learn more about. We're always here as a contact. But thank you so much for listening today. I tried to keep that to under half an hour to keep it interesting, and I think I've done that. So thank you so much. And as I say, please use our Padlet and contact us if you would like any additional information.